Hello, everybody. This is Dr. Cole. It's Saturday afternoon, April 30th, and we're now entering week 9 of Humanities 2333 Philosophy of Life for the spring 2022 term. Everyone, last week on the syllabus we had life decisions, and we're going to run our last 50-point discussion of the term this Monday through Wednesday, May 2nd through the 4th. You're asked to look back at your class notes. I believe it was for lecture 13 on life decisions, where we discussed the work of Professor Herka. You also have an article to look at online from social scientist Arthur C. Brooks. And what he says about your life decisions, to put it in a nutshell, is it's more important that your work be interesting than that it be fun. Okay? All right? So that's among one of the things you should be thinking about, according to Arthur C. Brooks, when choosing a life path or choosing the kind of work you want to do, how you want to spend your life. So take a look at that piece and also your lecture notes from last week, and let me know what you think about that. Please try to contribute twice between Monday and Wednesday, the 2nd and the 4th. Everybody, on the syllabus for this week, we're winding up the term as far as the class notes go. We're at the end of the term, so we talk about the end, or mortality. Okay, and then that's lecture 15, and then in lecture 16 we try to sum up the course with a discussion of worldviews and philosophies of life. Okay, well, everyone faces the prospect of death and dying. Some people think that we hesitate to admit it to ourselves, and we don't want it hanging over our heads, but it's something we all have to face eventually. We try to discuss some of the questions that philosophers have raised about death and dying. We're drawing on a book by philosopher John Martin Fisher, Death, Immortality, and Meaning in Life. Among the questions to be considered, is death a bad thing or a harm to the person who dies? Because after all, some philosophers would say, once you're dead, you're not around anymore to suffer the harm. So have you really been harmed? But then others will say, well, it's really counterintuitive to say that death is not a harm. That's representative of the way philosophers often think. They begin with their intuitions, and we certainly have the intuition, many of us, that death is a bad thing. Right, so is death a harm to the deceased? Would it be desirable to be immortal? Would human immortality be desirable? Okay. I once had a professor to put this question to a class, and someone immediately piped up answering the question with a question: in what condition would you be immortal? Okay, would you continue to age throughout your immortal existence? Well, we might consider that question and maybe set aside for some purposes, but presumably you would not want to continuously deteriorate through an immortal life. But suppose that matter could be addressed. Would it be a good thing or not to be immortal? It might surprise you to know that some philosophers think it wouldn't necessarily be a good thing for us to be immortal. What's the significance of near-death experiences? The people that some people have when they approach death or nearly die, and then survive to give an account of that. Some people report that they've seen evidence of another world beyond this one, on the other side, as a result of a near-death experience they may have had. There's some brush with death that they may have experienced. What is the significance of that? And finally, what would a good death consist of? Many people feel that people today often don't get to experience a good death. Perhaps not surrounded by friends and family as we might like to be at that point in our lives. What would a good death consist of, and will it be available to many people? All right, so those are among the questions we consider when we look at mortality in the class notes for lecture 15. Then to close out the course, worldviews and philosophies of life. Now, on one level, you might say, the central question is whether you are a theist or not, whether you are a theist or a naturalist. That's perhaps a very central question, although we also raise the possibilities of, shall we say, just a moment. Right. Humanism and transcendentalism. Those are approaches that some people have taken to try to bridge the gap or resolve the issue, give perhaps theists and naturalists both their due. But a very, very important question, of course, is are you a theist or not? Do you embrace a theistic or a naturalistic worldview? And then beyond that, everybody, it turns out that the term philosophy of life has a very particular technical meaning in the discipline of philosophy that I did not realize until a relatively short time ago when I was working on this course. Strictly speaking, the subfield of philosophy of life deals with the question of whether you ought to be a nihilist or not. Okay. So a nihilist would be someone who believes that there's nothing that makes life worth living. Okay? Why would somebody be a nihilist? Well, perhaps they feel, being 100% intellectually honest about it, that there's no credible account that can be given of something that you ought to consider as making your life worth living. The alternative would be to suggest that there's some kind of purpose to be served by your life that makes your life worth living, and therefore perhaps you don't have to be a nihilist. Okay, so philosophy of life, strictly speaking, is the question of whether or not you ought to be a nihilist. Is there not something that makes your life worth living? And you might think that that's related to the question, possibly, of whether you ought to be a philosophical theist or a naturalist. And that then will close it out for the class notes for lectures 15 and 16. That will be the end of our material for the final exam, which we're going to schedule, I believe, for Monday and Tuesday, May 9th and 10th. And we'll talk to you a bit more about that when we talk to you for one last time a week from now at this time. But in the main, the material for the final exam will be the material in the class notes for lecture 9 through 16. Now, everybody, let me say just a couple of things before we go. There are students who have not submitted enough work to get through the course successfully up to this time. Okay, now, I can take late work. There is at least one student who needs to take the midterm exam, and I would be happy to schedule the midterm exam for that student if you will contact me. Beyond that, there are a couple of students for whom I do not have either written assignment 1 or written assignment 2. Now, everybody remember, one 100-point assignment, one 100-point grade will be dropped. So you don't necessarily have to do both of those assignments, but you do need to do at least one, and there are some students from whom I don't have either one. There's plenty of time. I'm happy to take late work. Okay, so please get that to me between now and the immediate aftermath of the final exam, because I will need a day or two to look at it and grade it in order to get grades turned in on Saturday, May 14th. But I'm happy to consider late work. But you need to get at least one of those written assignments in to get through the course successfully. If you need me to turn in a grade of incomplete, please contact me. Be happy to turn in a grade of incomplete if something is going on that makes that necessary. And then you would have a year to finish the classwork. But we want to see everybody get through the course successfully, if at all possible. So please contact me. If you feel that you cannot complete the coursework, and you do not want to take an incomplete, and so you'll have to take a failing grade, the course will be offered in the summer. As soon as we get through with this term, we're going to start it up again for the summer term, beginning on Monday, May 16th, for a 7-week summer term. So that's something that you could do. You would want to look into it with the registrar's office as to the ramifications of that. But in any case, we have one last discussion coming up Monday through Wednesday, the 2nd through the 4th, and you want to be sure you complete that to help you qualify for a 25-point attendance bonus. Okay. After that, we have to look at any late work you may need to turn in, and then we'll have the final exam, which we're tentatively scheduling for Monday and Tuesday, May 9th and 10th, and then after that, grades are due on Saturday, May 14th. So we'll talk to you one last time, 1 week from now, about the final exam. Please take part if you're at all able in that discussion, Monday the 2nd through Wednesday the 4th. Please get any late work into me that you need to get in order to complete the course successfully, or if necessary, contact me about taking an incomplete in the course. we want to be sure everybody gets through the course successfully if at all possible. So please contact me if you're short some work that you need to turn in to get through the course successfully. And we'll talk to you one more time a week from now about the final exam. Good luck, study hard, take it easy, and we hope we see you in the discussion room.